Are you ready for the most exciting 2 minutes in sports? Become a VSiN Pro subscriber today for just $9.99. Get all access to everything we do, including our Kentucky Derby betting guide that is available now. We have profiles on the horses, jockeys, and trainers so you know which horses are the favorites, the sleepers, and the long shots. Plus, best bets from Dave Tooley and other VSiN experts to help you make the most out of your Kentucky Derby bets. This offer won't last long, so subscribe today for only $9.99 at VSiN.com/subscribe. Hot off the presses, we have it for you. Right there. This is, I have it in my hands, the Kentucky Derby betting guide. You know who else is excited for the fastest 2 minutes of sports? Not just Sean King, who made his excitement known off the top of the show. We have a pair of sports betting Hall of Famers, double-barreled action here in the South Point studio today. To my right, Chris Andrews, and to my left, Vinny Magliulo. Gentlemen, ready to do this?
We're an
Thanks for having us,
yeah.
I know. Unfortunately, you've been linked for about 40 years. So,
what are you going to do? It is what it is.
Here's to the next 40.
Here's to the next 40.
Next 40 might be a little tougher, but we'll give it a shot.
Vinny Magliulo comes walking in and goes, "My horse just got scratched." So, were you not a fan of the news with the scratch that just came out? No practical move. In the Derby?
I did have practical move outlined in my early exotics. So, but you know what? There's still plenty of time to reload and recalculate. And but I did have him. Not necessarily. I was going to wheel him with several other horses that we'll get into.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, it's still early, Vinny. We have time.
Plenty of time.
Chris, what have been your early thoughts? Just movement this week as we get ready now. Derby Day.
Well, I heard Sean say he was he was hoping that horse was in because he was going to bet against them. Right. He was going to attract someone. I kind of felt the same way, with all due respect to my partner over there, Vinny. I didn't like that. Listen, you look at these horses. There's so much money, so much good breeding, so many great trainers. It's hard to say I don't like that horse, but I like the others. Let me put it that way.
Mm-hmm. And here's what's interesting. If they ran the Derby 4 times, you'd probably get 4 different winners almost every year because it's such a big field. Mm-hmm. So much of it is about trip. And so much of it unknown. None of these horses have gone a mile and a quarter. Mm-hmm. So you're really trying to decide which pedigree says that this horse potentially can get the distance.
It's a terrific point. It's an important point, Sean, because the Derby, the Great American Horse Race, has variables that no other race has. Right? I mean, you're not going to see these variables in the rest of the Triple Crown, not even probably in the Breeders' Cup. The number of starters, that trip from the barn alone in front of that many people, you throw all those factors in, and what it does is really bring favorites back to the field and gives long shots like we saw last year a legitimate shot.
And I think a lot depends on the jockey too.
Sure.
The last couple of days I've been looking back through some old films, and one that just well, first of all, I had the winner, so I don't mind watching this race. when Ferdinand won the Derby in '86, I want to say.
That's right.
The ride Shoemaker gave on him was just incredible. Took him wide around the turn and cut in and win the race along the rail. Just an incredible ride. But, it's one of those right now. We're looking at all these jockeys' names.
They're all good jockeys.
Their names are all great. But at the end of the day, we're going to say, boy, this guy, what a ride he put in, And, a lot has to do with the horse. A lot has to do with the trip, the trainer. I mean, there's so many different variables. But, whoever has the winner is going to sound like a genius about 4 o'clock on Saturday.
Right. Well,
I hope I'm that guy, by the way.
Hopefully it all works out for you, Chris. Yes, you were right. 86. Very, very good call. And like Sean, Sean wants to party like it's 99 again, since that was his first.
I had charismatic. This is how I got hooked in this business.
Okay. There we go.
Okay.
And I look at the odds board right now, gents, and you have Forte right now 3-1 on the morning line. Todd Pletcher, his trainer, a horse who's won 6 of his 7 starts, including the Florida Derby. And we'll have Irado Ortiz Jr., his jockey there, Chris. But speed's dropped a little bit in his last race. Are you a believer that there could be some signs of concern for Forte, or still really liking what he brings?
I really like Forte. I mean, gun to my head, I would take Forte. I think he's got the best jockey, Irado Ortiz. Maybe the best trainer. We could argue about that a little bit. But I think he's terrific. And when I first started looking at this race, I thought that he was going to be about 5-2. But the more I look at it, there's so many. Brad Cox, and our friend over here mentioned Brad Cox. He's a hell of a trainer. How many horses does he have in the race? He has 4, I think. Or whatever. Yeah. So, and then Pletcher has a bunch. So I think, I think Forte, like I said, gun to my head, I would play him. And I'll tell you, if his price gets away any higher than 3-1, I will definitely have a win bet on him. That I could tell you. Even though I was looking to beat him, and I'm still probably looking to beat him. but I will have him in all my exotics. I think he's an absolutely fantastic horse.
I'm in agreement with Chris. I think the other part about Forte to me, which is a variable. He's got that earlier birth date. We know these are all technically 3-year-olds, but they're really not 3-year-olds. Some of these horses were foaled later in the year. Forte is a February foal. So when you look at that, a couple 3 months for this race for 3-year-olds means a lot compared to when they're 4 and 5, when they're older. So he drew the outside. He had a farther out an outside post in the Fountain of Youth. So I think that when you in Florida Derby, I'm sorry, and he showed that he could battle. Now again, this is a bigger field than the other variables that we talked about, but definitely in my tickets.
Yeah. To go to your point, I'm sorry.
So here's what makes this so fascinating. If he gets in the gate at 3-1 and wins, it'll be the last time you get 3-1 on Forte for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
And you're going to be like, I can't believe I passed that up. But because the payouts can be so massive if he doesn't run first, second, or third, you're always trying to figure out, how do I hit the lottery type ticket?
And I would tell this, too, to a casual bettor. I like to bet win and exotics. Once in a while, I'll bet place, not very often. Never bet show. But in this race, you could bet win, place, and show, because the numbers are pretty good. You could have, let's say Forte goes off at 3-1. So what's that? An $8 payout. Mm-hmm. He might pay $4 to show. Mm-hmm. That's just the way because the pools are so massive. And usually, if I'm playing exact, I'll play a 3-horse box. But here, you could bet 4, maybe even more horses in a box because the payouts are monstrous. And just try to find your value. Don't just box all 4 favorites. Try to look for something like Rich Strike did last year. So
that's a good piece of advice.
And let me say one more thing real quick because I know everybody else wants to say that. Del Romans drew into the race. And Vinny and I have talked about this. When the also eligibles get in, sometimes they're really overlooked in the betting. I don't know if Romans can win this race because that horse looks okay. But if he does win, he's going to be probably a bigger price than he should have been.
No doubt. And when you think about which could be a horse that people find value in, outside of the top 2 or 3, there's a horse you do like as well, Chris. I want to throw your way with Mage coming out. He's still sitting at least on the morning line in that 15-1 range out of the 8 post.
I think he's going to be about 15-1. There's just so many good horses in this race. Castellanos' his jockey, never won the race. The trainer, I don't know, Delgado, I don't know that much about him. He's not one of the big names, like Cox or Pletcher or even like Tim Yaktine. So I think he'll get about that price. But, Vinny mentioned the Florida Derby, and Forte broke from an outside post, which, by the way, almost never wins at that distance at Gulfstream. But he did win. But Mage also broke last, was last down the backstretch, had a big move on the turn. Forte ran him down, but how much did he get used up getting into position? But I think he'll be, ideally, he'll be much closer to the front. I like him. I think he's the value horse for me, and that right now I will definitely have a win bet on him. Gotcha. I don't know if I'm going to have one on Forte as well, but right now that's the horse I'm looking at for my win bet.
And thinking about where you're also at, Vinny, I want to make sure we think about the other Todd Pletcher horses, as you guys brought up. Between Brad Cox and Todd Pletcher, that's 6 horses out of the 20 right now represented. But it's the number 2 horse on the odds board as of the morning line today, Tapit Trice, who is maybe getting not as much attention as Forte, but still sitting at 5-1.
Well, I like Tapit Trice too. I think it is kind of their invitational, right? Cox and Pletcher and everybody else. But you know what? I think when you look at Tapit Trice, look, you can't ignore. You've got to look at results, but you've got to break down those results too, right, guys? What kind of move was it? What kind of a race was it? And things like that. So for me, when you look at it, another good jock as well. This one has got probably a little better lineage than Forte, in my opinion, but not as strong in the level of results. 4 straight wins, definitely on my tickets.
Yeah, I like what you're thinking, Vinny. Sean, for those top 2 we just talked about, are those going to be in your exotics or any other boxes that you're?
Tapit Trice is a really good horse. I know why Chris likes Mage. I have a hard time backing 2 horses that have shown a propensity not to break. I think having to come from last in this 20-horse field, you've got to get so lucky. I'm probably going to try and fade him. Also, it's interesting, as great of a sire as Tapit Trice sire Tapit has been, he's never signed an actual Derby winner. I think he has 4 Belmont winners, but has not signed one yet that has crossed the finish line first at the Derby. But If Pletcher's winning races early on Saturday, don't count out anything Pletcher has running in the Derby.
Yeah, Sean King, he's ready to fire if it gets off to.
Yeah, he runs. Fletcher runs hot. I mean, I've seen him, especially in Florida. You see him. Boy, some of those days he has 4 or 5 winners in Gulfstream.
Yeah.
Another Pletcher horse we haven't mentioned is King's Barnes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that horse. I mean, he's 3 for 3, so he's a young horse.
Not bad.
His last race, though. There's always different things to look at. Last race, he won on the front end, did the 6 furlongs in 114. So he had a lot left. Yeah, you ain't going 114 here.
Probably not. He is Chris Andrews. He is Vinny Magliulo. Gentlemen, we could talk for hours on this stuff. Thank you both for joining us here on the VSiN Best Bets Derby Special.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.